The sun was sliding down behind the ridges of Red Creek when Marcus turned the sign on the garage door to closed and wiped his hands on a rag. The smell of oil and steel filled the air, the same comforting scent that had followed him since he and Jamal opened Brothers Auto and Repair 6 months earlier. It wasn't much, a 2-bay shop and a gravel lot, but it was theirs, built by their own hands. After years of war zones and classified missions, fixing engines felt like a kind of redemption. Jamal was still under the hood of a pickup, his sleeves rolled up, humming a low tune. He was always like that, steady, focused, the quiet storm between them. Marcus admired his little brother's calm, but he also knew what lurked under it, the part of Jamal that never quite came home. They both had scars, some visible, most not, but Jamal's had a way of waking up when trouble came sniffing around. And trouble had been sniffing a lot lately. 2 weeks after opening, someone had spray painted, "Go back where you came from," on their back wall. Marcus had scrubbed it off before Jamal even saw it, but the next morning there were beer bottles smashed across the driveway. Then the whispers started, at the diner, the gas station, the parts store. The Iron Sons ran this town, or so they claimed. Mostly ex-cons and bored kids, all muscle and no direction, wearing black vests like it meant something. Marcus had heard their name overseas once, on a list of gangs supplying illegal weapons. Small time then, small time now. But dangerous all the same. "Yo, big bro," Jamal called, slamming the hood shut. "You keep starin' like that, you'll burn a hole through the pavement." Marcus gave a half smile. "Just thinking. About them." "Yeah." Jamal tossed him the wrench, which Marcus caught without looking. "We didn't come here to think about them," Jamal said. "We came here to breathe." Marcus nodded, but the words didn't settle right. He had promised himself, and their late mother, that he'd keep Jamal out of trouble. He'd done enough fighting for both of them. But peace was hard to keep when hate had your address memorized. The rumble of engines broke the silence. 2 lifted trucks rolled past the shop, the same ones Marcus had seen idling down their road all week. Confederate flags in the back, mufflers screaming like taunts. The men inside shouted something he couldn't make out, followed by laughter that echoed down the quiet street. Jamal's jaw tightened. "You gonna keep letting that slide?" "We ignore it," Marcus said, voice even. "They want a fight. They'll get one if they come close enough." Jamal stepped forward, wiping grease from his hands with deliberate slowness. "You think hiding behind this, good citizen, act is gonna change them? You think they respect quiet? I don't care about respect. I care about staying free." "Free?" Jamal scoffed. "Ain't freedom when you flinch every time a truck slows down outside your shop?" Marcus didn't answer. He turned, walked toward the office, and flipped off the lights. "Lock up," he said quietly. "We're done for the day." But they weren't done. Not really. When Jamal stepped out back later that night to take out the trash, he froze. The wall, the same one Marcus had cleaned before, was tagged again, thick red paint, dripping under the dim security light. This time it wasn't just words. It was a symbol. The Iron Sons logo, a rusted chain twisted into a skull. Jamal's pulse slowed, not sped up, an old instinct, a soldier's calm. He stared at it for a long time, the silence around him sharp enough to cut. Behind him, the shop's door creaked open. Marcus stood in the doorway, eyes dark. "When?" "Just now." They looked at the mark together. Neither spoke. They didn't have to. Years of brotherhood, of war, and loss, made words unnecessary. "Maybe it's time to call the sheriff," Marcus finally said, though even as he said it, he knew what Jamal would answer. "And tell him what?" "That some racist boys with too much time on their hands got creative with spray paint." Jamal shook his head. "He'll file a report, tell us to be careful, and they'll come back tomorrow." Marcus rubbed his temples. "Then what do you suggest?" Jamal looked over his shoulder, meeting his brother's eyes. The streetlight cast his face half in shadow, half in gold. "I suggest we remind them that not everyone they target is built to break." Marcus felt a chill, the kind that wasn't about fear but about memory. He saw flashes, desert nights, gunfire, the sound of orders barked in his ear. He'd buried that life deep, but Jamal was right, peace only worked if everyone wanted it. And the Iron Sons didn't. "Tomorrow," Marcus said, locking the door behind them. "We'll handle it tomorrow." As they walked toward the small house behind the shop, the wind picked up, rattling the old metal sign that read Brothers Auto and Repair. It swung back and forth in the night, creaking softly, like a warning, or a countdown. The night air hung thick and heavy over Red Creek, the kind of humid stillness that made even silence feel loud. Marcus was closing up the garage when the crunch of gravel pulled his attention to the street. Two trucks idled there again, engines growling like beasts waiting for a signal. Headlights cut through the darkness, blinding for a moment. Jamal was beside him before he could speak, wiping his hands with a rag that he let drop to the ground. "Guess they couldn't resist another show." "Stay cool," Marcus muttered. "Don't let them bait you." 5 figures stepped out of the trucks. Big men in leather vests, tattoos coiled up their arms, cigarettes glowing like tiny fires. Their leader, a broad man with a shaved head and a cruel smirk, dragged a chain behind him as if just for the sound it made. The rest carried bats, pipes, and a confidence born from never being challenged. "Evenin', boys," the leader said, stepping forward. "Heard you been complainin' to the sheriff about us." Marcus raised his hands, palms out, the picture of calm. "We haven't complained about anyone." "Good," the man said. "Wouldn't want anyone thinkin' we ain't friendly." The gang laughed behind him. Jamal didn't laugh. He just stared. That stare, cold, locked in, was something Marcus recognized. Afghanistan. Fallujah. He'd seen that same look right before things went sideways. The leader smirked wider. "Tell you what, we like this spot. Been ours a long time. Maybe you two pack up and move along. Wouldn't want no accidents happenin' to your pretty little shop." Marcus exhaled slowly, trying to measure the distance. 5 men, maybe 7 feet away. Too close. Too many. Too fast. "Nobody's looking for trouble," he said evenly. "Just go home." That's when the first swing came. A steel pipe arced through the air toward Marcus's head. He ducked. Reflex. Trained instinct. Before the man could recover, Marcus grabbed the pipe mid-swing, twisted, and brought the attacker's arm down hard against his knee. A crack split the night, followed by a scream. The others hesitated, stunned for half a heartbeat, long enough for Jamal to move. Jamal wasn't big, but he was built like coiled wire, fast and explosive. He drove his elbow into one man's throat, pivoted, and caught another across the jaw with a backhand so sharp it dropped him where he stood. The gang scrambled, swinging wildly now, no formation, just fury. But the brothers had danced this dance too many times before, in tighter spaces, under real fire. Marcus ducked another swing, stepped inside the man's reach, and shoved him backward into the side of a truck. Metal crumpled. Jamal swept a leg, sending another sprawling into the gravel. When it was over, the night went quiet again. The 5 men groaned on the ground, one clutching a broken arm, another wheezing through what was probably a cracked rib. The leader stumbled to his feet, face streaked with blood, disbelief twisting his features. "What the hell are you?" he spat. Jamal stepped closer, eyes unreadable. "Not the ones you should have messed with." He reached down, picked up the chain the man had been dragging, and dropped it at his feet. "You forgot this." Marcus touched Jamal's shoulder, voice low. "Enough." For a moment, it looked like Jamal might go further, that the old switch inside him might flip completely, but then he exhaled and nodded. They backed away, calm, controlled. Somewhere down the block, sirens began to wail. Someone had called it in. The gang leader spat blood onto the gravel. "You think this is over?" Marcus turned back once, his voice even, almost soft. "It was over before it started." They walked back toward the shop, the glow from the broken lights flickering over the concrete. The adrenaline still burned in their veins, but neither spoke. The silence between them was heavier than the fight had been. When the police cars finally pulled up, lights flashing red and blue across the cracked pavement, the brothers were sitting on the tailgate of their truck, breathing steady. The officers, men Marcus recognized from around town, looked over the scene, eyes flicking between the battered gang and the calm, unmarked faces of the 2 brothers. "Self-defense," Marcus said simply, before anyone could ask. One of the officers nodded slowly, unsure. "You two sure don't look like you needed much defending." Jamal didn't answer. He was staring off down the road, where the trucks had come from, his hands still trembling slightly from the rush. "Not fear. Control." The kind you had to wrestle back after years of using it. After the officers took statements and loaded the gang into ambulances and cruisers, Marcus finally turned to his brother. "We said we were done." Jamal's lips twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Guess they didn't believe us." As they closed up the garage again, the night returned to its silence, but something had shifted. Red Creek wouldn't see them the same way anymore. The rumor mill would spin, stories would grow, about the two quiet mechanics who moved faster than the eye could follow, who took down 5 armed men without breaking stride. Marcus leaned against the doorframe, looking up at the stars barely visible above the town's faint lights. He'd wanted peace, but peace didn't come easy to men like them. Jamal joined him, lighting a cigarette, the glow briefly reflecting in his eyes. "Think they'll come back?" Jamal asked. Marcus shook his head. "No, but others might," and though neither said it aloud, both understood what that meant. The quiet life they'd built here was already cracking. The ghosts they'd buried were closer than ever, and Red Creek was about to learn that the two brothers running the local auto shop weren't just veterans. They were weapons that had chosen to sleep. And someone had just woken them up. The distant wail of sirens faded into the night, leaving behind an eerie stillness. The street was littered with broken chains, dented bats, and the groans of men who thought they understood violence until they met Marcus and Jamal. The brothers stood in the middle of it all, breathing steady, the dim orange glow of the streetlight washing over their faces. Marcus glanced at his knuckles. No blood. He hadn't needed to hit hard. Precision was enough. He turned to his brother, who was pacing, eyes scanning the shadows as though expecting another wave. "It's over," Marcus said softly. Jamal didn't look convinced. His muscles were still coiled, tension buzzing off him like static. "Over." That was just the opening act. He kicked a pipe aside, sending it clattering down the street. "They'll come back." You saw the look on that guy's face. "He's not the kind to take a loss quietly." Marcus sighed. "Then we'll be ready." Jamal stopped pacing and looked at him. "You mean you'll be ready? You're already slipping back into soldier mode, man. You don't even hear yourself." Marcus said nothing. He didn't have to. The truth hung between them like the smoke from the busted streetlight. When the last police car pulled away, leaving only the echo of tires on asphalt, the brothers walked back to the garage. The gravel crunched beneath their boots. A stray cat darted across the road, vanishing into the brush. The night smelled of burnt rubber and tension. Inside the shop, Marcus flicked on the lights. One bulb buzzed, flickered, and went out. The place looked different now, less like a dream and more like a target. The wall that had been spray-painted earlier still showed faint red smears where the tag hadn't fully washed off. Jamal stared at it for a long time. "They marked us," he said. "You know what that means." Marcus dropped his jacket on the counter. "Yeah, I know exactly what it means." He leaned on his palms, staring at the grease-stained floor. "But it's not our war. Not anymore." Jamal laughed bitterly. "Tell that to them. You think they care who we used to be. To them, we're just two black men who don't know our place." Marcus's jaw tightened. He'd spent years learning control. Discipline was the only thing that kept soldiers alive, but there was something in Jamal's words that cracked through his armor. "And what? We prove them wrong by burning this town down. Maybe we prove them wrong by reminding them who they're dealing with." The words hung in the air. Marcus met his brother's eyes. There it was again. The fire, the edge that came out whenever Jamal felt cornered. The same fire that made him unstoppable on the battlefield, and dangerous off it. "Sit down," Marcus said quietly. Jamal didn't move. "Sit down, Jamal." Reluctantly, Jamal dropped into the chair by the workbench. His hands fidgeted with a wrench, spinning it between his fingers. "You ever think," he said after a while, "that maybe we can't do this normal life thing? Maybe men like us weren't built for peace?" Marcus looked at him, tired but soft. "Peace isn't something you find, little brother. It's something you build, every damn day." Jamal gave a small, humorless laugh. "Yeah, then why does it keep falling apart?" Marcus didn't have an answer. They sat in silence for a long while, listening to the hum of the refrigerator in the corner and the creak of the building settling. Outside, a gust of wind knocked over an empty can, sending it rolling across the lot. Somewhere far off, a dog barked. Finally, Marcus stood. "Come on." Let's go home. They walked the short distance to the small house behind the shop. The porch light flickered as they approached, and Marcus made a mental note to fix it tomorrow, if tomorrow still felt normal. Inside, the place was simple. 2 rooms, mismatched furniture, the smell of coffee lingering from that morning. Marcus headed straight for the sink, washed his hands, and watched the water turn gray with grease and dirt. He caught his reflection in the window, older, harder. "We said we were done," he murmured. Jamal leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "Guess the world didn't hear us." Marcus looked at him, and for a brief second, something softened in his eyes. "No," he said, "they just forgot to ask who we were." Jamal smirked faintly, that soldier's smirk he couldn't quite lose. "And now they know." Outside, the night had gone still again, but it wasn't the peace they'd wanted. It was the uneasy calm that came after a battle, the kind both men knew too well, the quiet that meant more trouble was coming. As Marcus locked the front door and drew the curtains, his phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. He frowned and answered. A low voice spoke on the other end, muffled but clear enough to send a chill through him. "You should have stayed gone, Sergeant Hayes. You and your brother just started something you can't finish." The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone, then looked at Jamal. "Who was it?" Jamal asked. Marcus pocketed the phone. "No one we need to call back." Jamal stepped closer. "They're coming, aren't they?" Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. They both knew. The brothers exchanged a long look, half warning, half understanding. The same silent language they'd used in the desert, in alleys, under fire. Then Marcus turned off the lights. "Get some sleep," he said. "Tomorrow's gonna be a long day." But neither of them slept. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the town, engines started up again.